This is Big Guy DIY Robert coming to you with another project. This one here, it's that time of year when we start getting our boats ready to drop in the water, and customer had asked me to do some work on his boat. So the first thing I'm tackling on this one is the trailer, which I'll show you. So he's having problems with his pigtail to his lights. And so I took off the coat, and this is the first thing I notice. There's supposed to be a green brown and a yellow brown. So someone did some homemade wiring here, which is not correct. And then if I come underneath this part of the boat, it continues. Where are we? It continues to the rear of the boat. So we're gonna have to we're gonna pull new wiring through. So the type of lights he has is your regular rectangle lights with regular light bulbs. They're not LEDs. It's got side marker lights, one on each side. I may or may not hammer that out. I don't know. It depends on the mood I am at the time. Now, normally when you're rewiring a trailer, you would cut the wires from the tongue, but don't remove them, because those wires are going to be used to pull the new wiring through. But this trailer here is a little different. What's happening on this one is the wiring is starting here at the tongue, going in on the side, as you can see. Then it's coming down here, and it's coming out of a small hole right here in the Y. Then going down and going back up in another hole to the rear. So what I'm going to do, this is going to be cut in two pieces, possibly. I got to figure this one out. But I'm going to use the existing wire from here and pull the new wire down through there. The only thing is this trailer here, the end of it is not open. It's enclosed. And this is what I mean by enclosed. The wiring comes out here in a hole. So what I have to do is I got to pull new wiring in through here. So I got to attach it to this wire here, pull it here so it comes all the way out, and then from here separate it. Now on trailers, driver side is always yellow and brown. Passenger side is always green and brown. How I'm going to splice the lights in, as you can see, again, a wire is running through the hole going to the back. So I got to run a second wire from here all the way back. And again, this is a situation where you leave the wiring in place until you have the wire ready to pull through there. So I believe, yeah, I got green wire and I have yellow wire that are on separate spools. So I'm going to be pulling new wire in through that. So let's get started on this project here. So the products I'm putting in, and these are products that I purchased, is LEDs for your marker lights, LEDs for your taillights, and then just C-choice wiring. The trailer is 19 feet long. That's why I'm doing 20 feet. It gives me a little extra wire to play with, because when you're going through bends and turns and stuff, that reduces the length of the wire as you go along. So that's why you always buy the wire harness longer than the boat trailer itself. So I'm going to pause this for a second because I'm going to go get a chair so I can sit down and work on this. Now this has a grommet in it right here, and it's dry rotted. The white wire is your ground. Now, I've seen this done a couple of ways. I've seen the ground wire go to the trailer, which is fine. I've also seen the ground wire not go to the trailer. They just wrap it around the end of the pigtail. Because normally your coupler is your ground running from your vehicle to the trailer. But there's absolutely nothing wrong with running a ground to the trailer itself. So as a matter of fact, I'm going to try to keep it consistent, and I'm going to keep this ground here. I'm not going to change it. It's still a solid hold. Not worried about the rust or anything like that on there. And pigtail length, I usually go for approximately 2 feet from the back of the coupler going forward to the end of the pigtail, because the 2 feet covers your 12 inches right here and another 12 inches beyond that to get to the vehicle. It usually is more than enough, but if you think you might need more, you can always tuck in the additional length inside here. So since we got 2 wires here, one I'm going to pull through and one I'm going to leave out. Here's another thing I wanted to point out on this trailer, which is wrong. This is not really a legal thing. Is his chains. As you can see, he just sticks a cable through here and then hangs the hooks. That's not legal. That's not right. We're going to change that too. Well, I'm going to change that. I should say we. They should be, the chains should be bolted with the coupler right here. This cable here is a cable that you'd use on locking a bicycle. It is. That's all it is. This is a cable for a bike. It ain't gonna do crap from a safety standpoint. So, all right. So this one's gonna go back. Now, how I do this is I fold the wire in half with electrical tape. I tape the wire. And that's to create a loop. So there's my loop. Grab the new wiring. So in these new wiring packages, I'll show you what they give you for parts in here. All right. This kind of makes me laugh. Wire nuts. You don't use these on trailers. You don't. This is something that's going underwater. You're dropping a boat in the water. Okay. It even if you're not dropping a boat in the water, you don't use wire nuts on a trailer. So that's BS right there. Okay. This is what you use when you're doing electrical inside your house and it's not going to be out in the weather. Next thing you have these metal clips. Depending on the type of frame, these are actually very handy. The top part here that my finger's on, that clips into the frame of the trailer, and then your wire slides into this bottom half and it holds it. This trailer is completely, there's no C joint to it, or I should say C channel used or I channel used, so I can't use this really anywhere. Maybe at the end where the lights are attached, because the lights are attached to a flat galvanized plate, but that's about it. The other thing that they provide here, I'm not a fan of these. These are splicers slash connectors. The reason I'm not a fan of these is you're trying to prevent, at least in this situation, we're trying to prevent water from getting into the copper and corroding it and eroding it over time. This leaves the copper open for water to infiltrate the wiring. So a lot of times when you have to replace wiring on a trailer, it's because water got in there. So I don't use these. I use waterproof butt connectors and I splice them. So I'll have two wires going into a butt connector and then one wire coming out the other side. And then it shrinks on itself using a heat gun. Yeah, wire nuts. I see they got gray ones in here too. Don't use that. Screws, they're just plain old cheap steel screws. These will rust within a year. Go with stainless steel, especially with a galvanized trailer. All right, when taping your wire, or when you're going to pull the wire, I don't, for this style trailer I won't, because of the size of this hole. I don't put both wires together and then put them through. The hole's pretty small, so the trick here is just to do one wire first. Wait, before I do that though, I want to see if I can get this grommet to fit. If I don't have the right size grommet, I'll come up with a split grommet. Yep, I got to get a screwdriver. So if you're wondering, not wondering, but if you want to know what a grommet is, you can always get these everywhere. But there is a groove here, and your frame goes within that groove. And what it does is it protects the wiring as it goes into the trailer here. It protects it from chafing and having the wiring get cut into from on here. So I'm just using a screwdriver to make sure it's on the frame and it's not going in. So I'm going to do what they call a split grommet. And I'll use a hard plastic one for that one. Split grommet basically is a grommet just cut in half and then you slide it in. If you don't have access to these type of grommets, here's another option. These plastic caps. And I'll let you look at it. What you can do is just cut a hole in here with your with a drill and then pop that right on. Now this one here is too big for this hole, So, but I brought this out as an example to show you another option if you can't get rubber grommets. Those two the same? Yeah. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and just pull the wire through. So one wire, tape that. Now, some people will sometimes tape a wire this way, put them together this way, and then tape it. That's all right, but if you have enough pressure, the tape is not going to hold the wire and it will slide apart. I can guarantee you that. Of all the wires I've snaked through hard tops on center consoles and tournament fishing boats, this never works at all. Not unless you have a way to push from one end while you're pulling from the other end. So you always want to fold one. If you don't have enough room for two wires, then what you do is you split it, do a single wire, tape it. This wire here gets cut, and then you tape it onto it like this. And then that gives you a smaller diameter of wire to pull through. So here's our one wire. Now for the next wire, because I don't want to lose it, we're going to go through up here and bring it down. So see, I still have that hinge, pull the wire through. And by bending it over, it's not going to get pulled out. They won't get separated. All right. So I'm going to go underneath the Y part of the trailer, and I'm going to pull one of these wires through. So this wire here runs down the passenger side. Another rotted out grommet. So we're going to feed our wire in the hole. And there we go. Our wire's out. Now, we're going to cut this. That's our driver's side wire. We're going to throw it to the other side. And I'm just going to cut the wiring here. Like that. Now, we can pull the rest of the wiring through. Whenever you buy the wire harness for your trailer, it gives you both the male and the female connectors. So this is the female connector that would attach to your vehicle if your vehicle did not have the wiring. All right. Same deal. Gonna do a loop. Green and brown. Hopefully you can see that. So before I pull that wiring down, I want to get my wiring set up here in the front. And then what I'm going to do is just secure it up in the front. So when I pull it in the back, I will know exactly how much length I have. So one thing you can do, give yourself an idea where you want this. Once you get the length you want, put a knot into it. Okay. That'll stop it from going down. It gets pulled in. So we got to reattach our ground, our white wire. So I'm going to remove most of their wire and have my connection pretty far back into this. So right there. And let me go get my wire strippers and butt connectors, and I'll show you what those are. All right, I'm going to give you a close-up view how this is done. These are waterproof butt connectors. They're shrink wrap, meaning when you heat this up, this end here will shrink on the wiring, thus make it waterproof. They come in different sizes depending on the gauge wire you use. And they usually tell you on the side, you can see the black, maybe, the black print there. 16 to 14 AWG, AWG is the wire size. And that's what we're working with. So you need a pair of wire strippers and crimps. And I use a micro torch, but you got to be careful when using this because you can melt or burn through the butt connectors. So that's one thing you want to avoid. So one way to tell if a copper wire has been compromised by water is the color. This one still has, oops, still has the color of copper on it. If it's been compromised by water, it will be black. If it's corroded meaning like salt water got into it, it will be jet black. And you can almost grind it and it'll come apart in your hands. So lengthwise, I only do about a 1/4 inch, nothing longer than that. If you do longer, if you're using, say, an AUG that's much thinner than this, or I should say a wire that's thinner than this, take the end here, fold it, okay, then stick it in. By doing that, you're giving yourself a thicker wire to crimp on. When you crimp these, try not to crimp through the jacket. Okay, try not to break the jacket. And then give it a little tug. Yeah, too thick. So you can see I use two different types of crimps here. The first one I did with this because it was a smaller wire. You see how that knob there goes in and squeezes it. And then this is the other size here. I use to squeeze it. So now, shrinking it. Get your torch running and keep your torch a little distance, and you just want to get it close enough where you start seeing it to shrink. Start seeing it shrink against the wire. As it shrinks, it's going to fill the void inside the wire with like a glue. And that's it. Our wire is now sealed from the elements. This may not be long enough, but this is a split wire loom. They call it split because it's actually two pieces. It might be long enough. The only trick putting the wire in this is you can see what I'm doing here. It's holding it inside and then just sliding it. And the other trick is having patience. They're not the easiest thing to work with. And here's another thing. If you're not able to get a grommet, you can always, if you use extra wire loom, you can go through the hole with the wire loom. And that'll help protect the wiring as well. It looks like I'm going to have enough. So to keep this together, you just take electrical tape, wrap it around. Now, some people will tape this entire thing. I don't do that. I just put one there, and then I'll do another piece further down. No defined distance. It just prevents the loom, the split loom, from opening and the wire coming out. That's all. So there we go. So this end is done. I'm just going to leave it up here and pull our knot back out because we don't want that to go down. So the next thing to do, I know I haven't secured the yellow wire to that wire yet, but you can only do one side at a time. So the next thing we have to do, we have to take these nuts and bolts off, remove the light to give us access to that hole. So I'm not going to show you how to take nuts and bolts off. I'm just going to take it off, and then we will come back and we'll start pulling the wiring through. Well, when the bolts are rusted on a tail light, your only option is to cut them off or grind them off. You're not going to reuse these bolts. The new lights come with new bolts, nuts and bolts. So there we go. So there's some extra wiring here. I don't understand. It just is a multitude of colors here. So I know, looking at it, this wire here, the single green wire, that goes to my marker light. That I'm positive about. This other wire, which is the yellow and brown, this is the wire I'm pulling through, the new wire. And there we go. There's our new wire. So we just pull that until it's a little snug. And I went to the other end to make sure there's no play hanging out of the wire itself. So lengthwise, I still have plenty of wiring to play with here. I got 2.5, 3 feet, so I don't have to worry about undoing all this tape work. Just cut it, done, be done with it. So that's my new wire from the front. I'm just going to tie it off the side here. And then this new wire, gotta think about what we're going to do and how we're going to do that. What I'm going to do, well, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to pull a new wire through, starting from this end. So we'll do a loop here, tape that loop, pull my green wire from here, back up the side to in front of the fender, and then on the front side of the fender. So for now we're going to stop because it's actually getting dark out and mosquitoes are starting to come out. So I'm going to stop at this point right here. As for, I used a grinder. I did not use a cutting wheel. And I know someone's going to give me grief about that, but I was just using what I had. I didn't want to bother putting a cutting wheel on. But considering how long it took me to do it, I'm going to swap this out to a cutting wheel so it works a little faster. So that's it. We're going to come back when we got more light, and we're going to install this side of the trailer light. All right, so we're back in the garage here. This is the following day. Change my thing to a cutting wheel. So I've already cut off the light on the driver's side of the trailer. So we're opening the packaging up to the LED lights for the tail lights. Now there is a left and right, or driver's side, passenger side, to these lights. And the way you tell is by looking at the bottom. See this? This here is your license plate light. So this is the driver's side tail light, and this is the passenger side tail light. License plate always goes on the driver's side, so it can be easily seen from the roadway. Hardware. These are your nuts and bolts, and again, they're doing the wire nuts in here. You can see it in gray. Don't use it, throw it away. I've already attached my shrinking butt connectors to the lights. So now I'm going to go install these lights in. So we're going to go back outside and work on this. So I'm on the driver's side of the boat. One way to tell is yellow wire. Now, one thing I want to point out on this is in the instructions or in the when you buy a wire harness kit, it will tell you yellow wire driver's side, which means the green wire is on the passenger side. The difference between the brown and the yellow, or the brown and the green, is brown is your running lights. You're wondering what are running lights? When you turn on your regular lights on your car, your amber lights, your marker lights, those are considered your running lights. The colored wire, in this case it's yellow, on the other side it's green, is your brake light and your directional or your blinker, depending on what wording you want to use and part of the world you're living at. So that's your directional and your brake is the colored wire. Now, you'll see there's an extra wire here. It's yellow. I do not have a brown wire. This really is a marker light wire that's going to go to this light. That's going to be installed in front of the fender. But I'm using yellow because I had yellow. The other side I'm using green because I had green. It's actually difficult to get a brown wire. I don't understand why, but it is. Now, pulling the old wiring out, I could separate them just like I'm doing here and cut that from the old wiring, separate the brown wire, run the brown wire from here up, but I'm just going to use new wiring, and that's the way it's going to go right now. So the old plate is mounted to a metal bracket. They don't do that any longer. The main reason why is when you hit something, like when you're dropping the boat in the water, this gets bent up and risks damaging the light that's installed here. So what they've gone to is plastic. I had this one sitting around for a long time. I'm just going to use it. If he plans to, whatever, I'm just going to use it. Simple as that. When installing the light, don't use any power tools to tighten your nuts and bolts. Okay, do it by hand. It doesn't need to be extremely tight, just snug enough where it can't come off by hand easily. So you just do it snug / tight. The way these lights are installed, they have slots, 3 slots in the back side. Yeah, I got the wrong light. Glad I caught that one. That's what told me I had the wrong light, and then the color. So you have 3 wires coming out the back. The white wire is your ground. As I mentioned earlier in the video, the white wire coming off your pigtail of the trailer, that ground is attaching to this. So this is where your ground is meeting your ground and carrying it forward. You have 3 slots in the back. Depending on the type of trailer you are mounting this to, You can see him just pushing the wires into the cutouts here. It can be either on the top or the bottom depending on how the light's going in, but in this case it's going in this way. These slots, two of them, should match the slots on the housing or the part where you're going to mount to. So for me, I don't want the light to stick out. I want the light to be in. We just slide these in. Ground wire. Some people will put the ground wire on here now, and then that way when this is screwed in, the ground is attached. I don't do that. I put the ground wire on the back side of the mounting. It just holds it better overall. We're going to put our license plate bracket on. Now that the bolts are sticking out, we're going to bring our ground around. Put it on the bolt and then put our first nut on. Now, if you use a power tool to install this, what happens is this bolt, really it's a carriage bolt. I'm going to show you the head of it here up close. This carriage bolt has this part here is what prevents it from spinning when you slide it into the light. The thing is this is plastic. If you overpower this, it'll spin it inside the plastic. That's why I'm saying don't use a power tool. Socket usually on these is 9/16, which it still is. So now we got our extra wiring. The brown wire, you know what? I'm actually going to change this yellow wire out. I'm going to do that. I'm going to take the old wiring, separate the brown from it, and we'll do brown with brown. Because for me to say, put your yellow wire with your brown wire, and then your other yellow wire with your yellow wire, that's going to confuse you. So let me do this. Let me switch this out. All right, I swapped it out. So I grabbed the old wiring and just split it. Now, if the wiring is really old and shot, sometimes a jacket from the wire will rip open. If it's doing it in one spot, most likely it'll do it along the entire wire. It'll have exposed wire. That happens, you can't reuse the old wiring. This wire here separated fine, no issues. So now we're back to where we are again. Now on this, you're going to be bringing two wires together. Now, I'm not going to make this really short in regards to the wire length. I'm going to actually keep it a little on the long side so I can stuff some of it back into the frame. It's just if you ever need to service this, you want a little length to this. So separate our wires. We're going to bring the two brown wires together and twist them. And I'm going to cut it to where it's a 1/4 inch in length. And then brown wire to brown wire. And then crimp. So what do I have now? The two brown wires that are coming out of the frame. One wire runs the running light up. The other wire is coming from the pigtail. And I forgot my torch. And there we go. My wiring, I stuffed it back into the frame. So it's a clean look. There's nothing underneath hanging to snag a wire. So everything I did here in regards to the butt connectors and the connections all the way to the pigtail is a sealed system. This light is a sealed system. It's waterproof. My connections are waterproof all the way up to my pigtail. So now the next light I got to install is the marker light. So my marker light, the old one, I had to cut that off. I mean, it was rusted on. What are you going to do? Hardware for your marker light. It's just the nut that's already on here, and it always has a lock washer. I'll take this off and show you. That's your lock washer right there. On these lights, they always have a cut right here. What that cut is for your wire to come through like that. Before you tighten your nut to this, make sure your ground wire is not being pinched underneath. So one way to tell is physically look at it. Excuse my head. And it's not being pinched. We'll just tighten the nut. So that brown wire that I attached to in the back there, running from the tail light, here it is. And it comes out of the hole in the frame. So you can see how long this wire is. Obviously, we don't need this kind of length. I would rather take the length off of this because these tend to break or get smashed over time versus this, the wire that's feeding the power. Now, sometimes, like on this trailer, I'll show you. Okay, so we got this installed. I made sure that my wire is not getting cut into from the frame of this light. It's going through this hole and it's free to move. Again, tighten this by hand. This nut and bolt here is your ground, so there's no second wire like a white wire to ground it. It's being grounded directly to the frame. As for length, I tend to cut a lot of this off the light, not off the feed. The feed is the most important one. So this I will cut short and attach it up high. This also, you can see here, came with a welded in tube. So your wiring comes out and goes up through this tube and then comes out. That stops the wiring from hanging below the frame so you don't get it hung up on anything, branches or whatever that might be in the water. This is also a good example. You can see here the thin frame. The clips that come with the wire harness itself, I showed earlier, that would hold the wire. This is a great place for it, where it would hook up here and your wire would clip in it and it stops your wire from hanging below. So I gotta go get a butt connector and connect those two together. If you're wondering where can I get these shrink wrap butt connectors, you can get them at your well-supplied auto parts store or marine store. They're pretty common now. So again, I'm going to use a clip, and there is a correct way and a wrong way to do this. You can see here on this, a little piece of metal sticking out. This part here is the part that hooks to the frame. Your wire goes into the bottom part. Me being a little OCD with wiring, I'm going to put the clip on the bracket that's holding the light. Now it takes a little muscle to get these on. Sometimes a hammer. There. That's your clip installation. So now we're going to go do the other side. So I already went through and pulled my green wire out and put my brown wire in. The wire nuts that come in the kit, actually don't throw them away. If you do electrical work in your house, they are usable for that, for like phone line or something like that. It's very small. Your regular Romax wire will not fit in these, but it's good to save them because you might be able to use them for something else. So, same thing here. I want to show you one thing. Is there a top and bottom to this? There actually is. Look at this side. Look at this side. That goes in towards the trailer. This is your marker light. It goes outside the trailer. I didn't show you that on the other end. So I'm pushing my wires. You can see into the slots here. And then they just run through that cut right there. Grab my white ground, bring it to the back side, put it on the bolt, and I'll show you what it looks like once I have this installed regarding the ground wire. So that's how the ground wire is installed. No changes on this side. Again, don't make your wires too short from the wire harness, because you're going to stuff most of this back into the frame, and that's for serviceability. So if you ever smash your taillight or something, again, you have the wire length to play with. All right, I want to show you this color. I mentioned when wire has not been infiltrated by water, you get a clean copper look. When water gets into the wiring, see how it's not clean? If we put them side to side, side by side here, see the difference in color? So this is the old wire. Water has gotten into it. It will still work. It's not black, it's just, brown. But that's what wire that's beginning to corrode when water seeps into it. Hence why I use waterproof butt connectors. So twist your browns together, brown to brown. One question you may think is, can you over crimp a wire? Yes. If you do, the wire will actually break. And that's what happened with this one. I crimped it too hard. And so the wire actually broke off. Underside. So in the last one, I have to do is this one, but I'm not going to record that. I got to do a little hammering here to try to straighten things out. A little pipe, the wire would have gone through the bottom of this. If I can get it to focus. Where is it? right there. It's smashed. So I'm not going to get any wire through that. And I can't bend it out. It's galvanized steel. So this is a situation where the clip, we're going to put a clip here, and then we're going to put a clip here up high to hold the wiring in place. But you can see how this thing is all bent up. And I know it won't be the last time that this owner will back this trailer into something, because I fixed this trailer for him before. So that's how you rewire a boat trailer. It's pretty simple, it's pretty straightforward. The colors are very important when doing the rewiring, and securing the wires, and definitely have to use sealed connectors for this. Otherwise, you're going to be redoing your wiring in another 5 years or something, which you don't want to do, because you're pissing money out, basically. So, yeah, that's really it. The wiring's in place. All I have to do is that last marker light, and then test the lights, which you can use just a regular battery. And actually, one way to test it is in the light kit. I showed you the 2 pigtails, one for the trailer, which is the long one, and then there was a short one for your vehicle. If you strip the ends of those wires, you can put those on a battery, 12-volt battery, and test your lights that way. I don't have to do that. I have a tester that I hook up, and then I run all my tests through the lights. But for those who don't have that, that's what trick to use, is just use the pigtail that would normally go to the vehicle, strip the ends of it, and touch it to the battery and see if they go on. Obviously, if you touch the colored wire, which would be green or yellow, and the light doesn't get really bright, which would be your brake light, means you got it backwards. You have the brown wire attached to the yellow wire, and you have to switch it. Because when you do your running lights, it's supposed to be a very low brightness to it. And that's it. So this is Big Guy DIY signing off on this one. Any questions, rifle them below. I've done a whole slew of trailers, from 4-pin to 5-pin to 6-pin round, or 5-pin flat, 6-pin round, and 7-pin round. 7-pin round is usually used for electric trailers or RVs. 6-pin tends to be RVs or horse trailers. So that's it. So any questions, rifle them below. I'm going to include at the end here a picture of all the colors for a wire harness. So my advice is pause the video of that, do a screenshot or something, print it, and save it on your workbench or something like that. Because if you're working with a variety of connectors, this photo is very, very helpful. Trying to figure out what colors go to what, especially when you're getting into the 6-pin, 7-pin connectors. And that's either 7-pin round or 7-pin flat. Take care. Have a good one.